So, but Scott, let's talk about it. Number one, before we get to your visit, I do want to get your thoughts on this. It seems to me that the Russians have decided to, shall we say, celebrate the 4th of July early with their own fireworks show in Kiev. And I've seen videos, and they're really kind of opening up the big gun, shall we say. It seems to me that, and I'm getting more confident talk. It seems to me that the Russians, they've pretty much decided what they're going to do. And seems to be big things going on. Constantinova has fallen. It seems to me that while there's big talk from Ukraine and its backers, they seem to be in a very difficult military position. Your thoughts?
Look, Ukraine is losing this war. And they've been losing this war for some time now. Ukraine is in desperate need of Western weaponry and Western money. And the support for Ukraine is lagging in the West. So what Ukraine and their Western sponsors have been doing is launching a masterful propaganda campaign that's backed by a surge in drone activity that's designed to create the impression that Ukraine is not only standing strong, but Ukraine is seizing the initiative and putting Russia on its back feet, and that Ukraine now has a chance of winning this war. There's a summit taking place in Ankara, a NATO summit taking place in Ankara on the 7th and 8th of July. And they're going to try and follow through with commitments made at the G7 meeting that just finished, to double down, to continue to fund Ukraine. And in this, you have to say the Ukrainian campaign has been masterful because they've been playing to a Western audience, and the Western audience believes that which they're being told. One of the reasons why I picked June to be this month, and it turned out to be the best decision possible. I was originally supposed to try and do this kind of trip to the SMO back in April. And for a number of reasons, it just didn't come through. And so we pushed it to June. The weather, of course, would be better. But and I thought that it would be better in terms of documenting a Russian offensive. What I got to document was the Ukrainian drone offensive, pretty much from start to finish. And what a drone offensive it was. The Ukrainians were launching drones, having a varying degree of success, but they've never crippled Russia. That's the whole thing. When I arrived in St. Petersburg for the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, which seems like it was only, a month ago, it seems like a year ago. It's amazing. So much has transpired since then. But, over 50 drones attacked St. Petersburg that morning. And they set Kronstadt on fire, and I was furious. And this comes on the heels of the May 22nd attack on Star Belch, which murdered 21 sleeping teenagers, students. Zelensky was saying before I arrived that June is going to be the month. 6,000 drones are going to be moving in. The British are talking about providing, tens of thousands more. And they're just long-range sanctions. That's the new, propaganda shtick that Zelensky said. Our long-range sanctions are working. You saw this when they hit Moscow on June 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 17th. When did I go back to June? Because I had to leave the special military operation area zone. I'll get in that in a second early because of the drone threat. I mean, it was a real drone threat. This isn't a game. This is real. And so when the decision was made to leave 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, return to Moscow, 500 drones hit Moscow that day. 500. Now, most of them were shot down. Only 8 got through. But you remember they hit that oil tank. And it blew up and the lid flipped and they got it on video and everybody's showing it. You could see the Ukrainian defense minister showing the video and all the European people are leaning in, smiling like, we're kicking Russia's ass now, and everybody's on social media. The Russians are scared. There's black rain falling. The Russians are worried. Well, I was in Moscow. The Russians didn't give a rat's ass. I mean, they really didn't. They just lived their lives. There was no panic. They went, oh, drones. shrugged it off and kept going because the drones are having zero existential impact on Russia. Vladimir Putin gave a very interesting interview, I think yesterday, in which he talked about this. He said, sure, there's an impact. Of course there's an impact. He said, but we've adjusted for it. We're repairing, we're moving on, and it's not having an existential threat. It's just a special military operation. We arrived in Lugansk, and we were greeted by the, I'm sorry, Maverick is entertaining me, but we were greeted by the air raid sirens. And that night, large explosions. I mean, Lugansk was under attack. We arrived in the special military operation and we were under attack. I say we, everybody. The next day, we went to Starobelsk and we were literally under attack. We had to leave Starobelsk early because the Ukrainians launched 2 drones that landed a block and a half away. And it was that way the whole time. Drones everywhere. And it's only gotten worse. We got to Melitopol and the city, the first hotel we tried to check into had no electricity and water. And we would have soldiered through that, except that they put us on like the 9th floor and there's no elevator. Okay, I'm willing to do this, but the hosts were like, yeah, we've seen you getting out of the car. You got some bad knees. You getting out of cars, Garland. It's not pretty. And they're like, no, we're going to find you something a little bit. And they found us a hotel that had a generator and electricity and water, and only on the 3rd floor. So it was an easier climb. But the point is, for the hundreds of thousands of people that live there, Melitopol is a city without electricity and water. You'd think you'd see demoralized people. No. People living their lives, people with good sense of humor, just going about their business. The highways are dangerous. There's no doubt about that. We had the head of our security team was also the driver, but he's sort of like a Russian version of Delta Force. I mean, cool. Scared shitless because of the drone threat. I mean, because he'd brief, because we'd get to stretches of the highway where he's like, this is, because they've got their early warning mechanism. And he's like, okay, there's a high risk. You need to be scanning constantly and you need to tell me what you see because we might have a chance if we catch it early enough to get the car off the road and bail out of the car and live. He said, don't worry about it in front of us because if the drone's coming at you, you don't stand a chance. It's just going to close in, hit the windshield, and you're going to die. So you got, we're scanned. But we came to a tree line. We're in the flat Zaporozhye area. We came to a tree line and a bird like a raven came flying across the windshield out of the tree line. So you didn't see it until it actually hit your line of vision. And it looked like a drone, like one of those FPV drones. I mean, we both pooped our pants. It was like, no, not a good moment. But and then on the way out, because we did have to leave, the convoy we're in got hit by Hornet drones. They got shot down, but it's a constant attack. Hornet drones, by the way, are made by Eric Schmidt's company, an American, and they use Starlink technology, and they're attacking civilians. So I just named 2 Americans, Eric Schmidt and Elon Musk, who are war criminals and should be identified as such and held accountable as such. But the point is, I was there. You get to Donetsk, the Donbass. There's this amazing clothing company that produces these shirts constructed under fire, built under fire. And that's their motto. They're like, bring it on. I mean, of course, nobody wants to bring it up, but they're like, bring it. We ain't going anywhere, nowhere. On the front line, the Russians are advancing. Now, there's people out there going, oh, the Russians are only advancing, a kilometer a day, 2 kilometers a day. It's very slow advance. Well, gosh, one of the things I learned, because I went there and I got to embed with 3 drone units and got to meet some other drone operators. Drone warfare has changed the whole concept of this war. It used to be, what separated armies were the maximum effective range of their weapons, their direct fire weapons. So if they see you, they could shoot you. So you basically separate the lines. Remember World War I, the trenches? You had to get out of your trench and go across no man's land. That was called the gray zone. It's the gray zone between the red line and the blue line. Normally 1 or 2 kilometers in modern warfare. The because of drones, the gray zone is now 40 to 60 kilometers deep. That's what separates the shooters because of the drones. So when people say the Russians are only advancing a kilometer or 2 kilometers, they're actually advancing 62 kilometers because they have to go 60 miles through the gray zone to get to the Ukrainian lines to make the advance. So they're fighting through 60 kilometers of drone warfare, incessant drone warfare. And again, the Ukrainians are flooding the zone with drones, a lot of drones, and it's very hard fighting. Every Russian I talk to is like, this is really hard. I mean, this ain't easy. But every day the Russians are advancing. So even though it ain't easy, they're doing it and they're winning. And the other thing is that the Russians, they understand that the Ukrainians have billions of dollars of technology coming in. They said it's a technology war. Drone warfare is about technology. I mean, I don't want to bore your audience too much, but the technology goes in. This is, these guys make their own drones, first of all, but if they buy a commercially, off the shelf drone, they don't take that and just fly it. They have to strip that thing down and build it back up. That's like, taking a street legal car and thinking you go drag racing. You ain't going drag racing with a street legal car. You got to rebuild the engine. You got to rebuild everything. But it's a whole new car. The drones that they go to war with are completely new drones. There's a whole bunch of technology. It's not just the way they use the radio frequencies, which was fascinating to learn about how they can change their frequencies depending on what the enemy's doing with jamming. But now they have fiber optics. But the new thing now is cellular technology using the internet. Basically, getting a SIM card and a SIM card equivalent. And I was looking at an experimental drone that's being put together. And if they perfect this thing, its only limitation is battery life, because it's unjammable. It'll be able to go out there and attack anything. And the Ukrainians using similar technology. Remember when they did Operation Spiderweb, when they put the trucks out there, those drones were using Russian SIM cards. They were tapping into the Russian cellular network, and that's how they were being guided, which is why now when you're in Moscow and a drone attack comes in, the internet connectivity drops to about zero because they're just shutting it all down. But, this was the new reality. But the other new reality is that the Russians, they just, first of all, they persevere. Nothing gets under their skin. They just keep going. Dude, they're really, really good at what they do. They're really, really good at what they do. They're very clever. They're very, they just think out of the box all the time. And three, they only accept one outcome, which is victory. That's the only outcome they accept. So as Ukrainians flood the zone and do what they're doing, the Russians are countering. They have a unit called Rubicon. I was supposed to interview them, but then the Russians were like, the problem is, Scott, the Ukrainians are hunting Rubicon, and they're hunting you. And we just don't want to create a situation where they get lucky and, find either one of you. So we're just going to keep you guys separated for now. But I got to talk about Rubicon. Rubicon is a drone hunting unit. It's a specialty regiment within Russia, and they deploy drone hunting teams. So as the Ukrainians flood the zone, as they're doing right now with all these drones, take a look at what's happened the last couple of days. The Russian Ministry of Defense, every day they go, okay, the UAV command center of the 123rd Brigade is taken out with 3 to 5 FAB 500 guided bombs. And when I say taken out, that means everybody there is dead. Now understand, to train a drone operator is minimum 4 weeks. That's just to get your basic skills. But then you have to go and you have to get operational. So your good drone operator is about 6 months minimum experience under their belt as they're out there doing things. The UAV command center that is running a brigade is a fixed location, and it'll have anywhere from 10 to 20 experienced drone operators working in there. So when the Russians hit it, they kill them all. There's no survivors. They literally kill everybody. So the Ukrainians are out there flooding the zone, but every day their brigades are losing the command, and there's no one to replace them. So when you lose that brigade loses its drone support connectivity. And the Russians are just killing everybody. The Ukrainians are hunting the Russians, and every once in a while they get lucky. The Russians talk about it. You don't want to screw up. You screw up, you're dead. But the Ukrainians are screwing up. They're getting caught. And every time they replace them, they're bringing in with less experienced people. one of the talked about how they were hunting for the Ukrainians, and normally you bring in everything, and everything you bring in leaves with you.
Mhm.
Garbage is your enemy, and so
Right.
there's and so they're drinking the water bottles, and there's a little bin that you're supposed to put your water bottle in, then bag it up, and then you'll carry it out to leave no trace. But the average rotation through a command center is about 10 to 14 days. Once you get in there, you dig in, and you stay there until you cycle through your batteries or you cycle through your drones. And even then, they can resupply your stuff. But what happens is people get complacent. And there was a case where a Ukrainian was drinking his water bottle, and instead of getting up and putting it in the garbage, he threw it. It bounced off the lid, rolled out from underneath the tree coverage, and got exposed. And the Russians were above there with the drone going, "Gotcha!" And within minutes, boom, boom, Iskander missiles killed everybody in there. You make a mistake, you die. Right now, the Ukrainians are dying like you wouldn't believe. The information we're getting about Ukraine operations on the front line is it's old. We're hearing about things that they did last week. This week, they're not doing those things because they're all dead, and the Russians are advancing. And the Russians are advancing at a more rapid pace now because the one thing that there's two things the Ukrainians use, three things to slow the Russians down. One is drones. The drones are very effective. Two is urban environment. They dig into buildings and you got to clear them out floor by floor. And three is they fortify tree lines. It's very difficult to take a tree line out because to go into a tree line, you're exposed to observation. Did the drones come in to get you? So it's constant drone suppression, constantly taking tree line after tree line and then clearing buildings. It takes time. But right now, the Russians are just in the business of just doing it. It's rapidly advancing. Now we get to the strategic thing. What happened in Kiev last night? Kiev last night was not a spur of the moment decision by the Russian government. The Russian government is launching a campaign against Ukraine. I've done the kind of planning necessary to carry out this attack last night. Was a highly coordinated attack. That just people need to understand. Ukraine has the most advanced air defense systems in the world provided by the West. And the West is constantly, so it's a layered air defense system with a lot of redundancy, a lot of capability. If the Russians just flooded the zone overnight with drones and missiles, they're going to get them shot down. And the Ukrainian air defense is always moving. So the first thing that's happened is that the Russians are constantly evaluating Kiev, looking at the defenses, and they're tracking it. And that every time they track it, they try to find the seam, or they say, okay, here's a potential gap. When we went into Iraq in 1991 to begin Desert Storm, we kicked it off with Task Force Normandy. Task Force Normandy was a special operations helicopter unit that went in because the Iraqis had a radar line. And we didn't want our aircraft coming in, triggering the radar line and getting the air defenses up. So we wanted to blow a hole in the radar line that our aircraft could go through undetected. And so the Russians will do the same thing. They want to find a seam. If you take a look at the flow of missiles and drones into Kiev, you'll always see they converge on a single stream going in. That's the gap that has been blown in the Ukrainian air defense line by the Russians. But it's not something that you can do instantly. It has to be planned. It has to be constantly planned. You have assets allocated to that task. Once you identify the gap, now you bring in your weapons. You have to identify the target. Which weapon's going to hit a target? What do you expect from it? And you have to monitor the target. The Russians aren't in the business of guessing. When they hit a place, they're hitting it because there's something in there worth killing. They don't operate off of old intelligence because that's how you get Star Belsk or Manab or something like that. They operate off of new intelligence. So for the Russians to carry out a package like this means that they have done the planning and all the stars aligned. And they went, boom, we got good targets, people in them, check. Air defense, gaps identified. Yep. Weapons to exploit the gap. Yep. Weapons available to hit the targets. Yes, yes, yes. Targets verified again, go. And then they go. And it's a campaign. And the point I'm trying to make here is that this didn't happen on the spur of the moment. Vladimir Putin didn't wake up in the morning and go, all right, let's just fuck around. Let's go mess with Kiev tonight. No. This is a constantly planned event. Russia has put Kiev on notice. We're taking you out. And so what's happened is that the Russian military is constantly monitoring Kiev. And when they get the targets available, the air defense aligned where they want, the weapon systems up, everything good, they launch the attack. But I can guarantee you, just the way of war is, that this attack that was planned was probably canceled 2 or 3 times prior to this event, meaning that they're sitting here going, and the intelligence guys are monitoring. They go, like they hit a hotel, and the hotel was a place where NATO people were in. So on the verge of it, the commander's going to go, "We got the target." And they go, "Yeah, target's in." And all of a sudden they're going to go, "No, target's not there. Target left." Well, we ain't launching against that target now. And so
Right.
cancel, scrub, stand down, go. And I can guarantee you the Russians have done that several times because it's a moral army. That's the other thing that came across about the Russians, is they're a moral army. They're a moral people. They're not out there to murder civilians. The Ukrainians are an immoral army. It's an immoral people. Eric Schmidt's Hornet drone has a feature in it. It's an AI driven. They'll fly it out as Starlink to help get it to the target, but then it goes into a racetrack mode, a hunt mode, and it uses AI. And the AI is scanning vehicles, looking for things that have been programmed into the computer. Is this what I want to attack? But when the battery life goes down, because it's all battery life driven, it clicks over into kill anything mode. And the vast majority of the targets being struck by Ukrainian Hornets are civilian targets, because the drones aren't finding the military targets, or the military targets are shooting them down. They go into kill anything mode, and they'll find a car, a truck, whatever, and they dive in and they attack it. That's terrorism. And Eric Schmidt is a terrorist. But the point is, the Russians have this situation under control. The drone war, this phase of it is over. Russia has won. Now Ukraine is getting ready to escalate into a different phase of it. You saw that they were using a lot of FP1, FP2 drones, those airplanes. But there's only so many you have, and the Russians have found the drone components are blowing up the warehouses with them, and so these drones are going to drop in number. That doesn't mean that they're over, but the day where they're going to cycle through 500 drones a day attacking Moscow, I think is over. They've run the course on this. They're going to go into the second phase now. They're talking about FP5s, the 2 that hit, for instance, Volgograd, hit the tractor factory that produces again, just so people understand, the factory was hit, produces mobile missile launchers. So it's a strategic facility. I mean, when you start tickling the bear, don't be surprised when the bear wakes up and bites your head off. And Ukraine's tickling the bear using intelligence and weapons provided. Those drones were built by the British, designed and built by the British using American intelligence to strike a Russian strategic target. What do you think is going to happen? The Russians said we shot down a FP8, which is a ballistic missile. One of the things the Russians always said is the one reason why they'll never let Ukraine join NATO is that they won't allow it to become a forward operating base for NATO missiles that can reach Moscow. Well, that's exactly what's happening. That missile's not produced in Ukraine. The Motor Stitch and the other facilities that were existed in the Dnipropetrovsk and Pavlograd have been blown up. So it's produced outside of Ukraine, maybe assembled in Ukraine, and then launched using Western intelligence. How long is Russia going to put up with this? I mean, so far, Vladimir Putin is the point that he's made at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum is that, he puts Russia ahead, that the war will not define Russia. But as he said, there is an impact and we are going to make adjustments. But at some point in time, logic dictates that, if the Ukrainians have this giant safe zone called Europe, where they can build, and you hear the Latvians and the Estonians brag, we're going to build a Ukrainian Estonian drone factory on the border with Russia. I'm like, really? And how long do you think that's going to last? But the Germans right now are talking about, their Rheinmetall plant kicking into gear. Well, you think Dusseldorf's out of range of the Oreshnik? I mean, at some point in time, the risk, the risk gain benefit analysis that that comes into play when you talk about hitting Europe is going to say we actually risk more not attacking Europe than we do by attacking Europe. Right now, the answer is we risk more by attacking Europe, that we can absorb this. And I just said to you, Russia won the drone war. All this crap that you've been seeing about Ukraine, it's over, ladies and gentlemen. Russia won it. It's finished. They might be a little spurt here and there, but it's like, this was the high water mark. This was Pickett's charge. The Ukrainians did the Pickett's charge, and they lost. And so, they're going to retreat now, and there's some little stay behind, but they're going to have to, replenish, come up with a new plan. But the Russians have never skipped a beat. what's going on in the front line is total Russian victory at a pace that Russia can sustain. So, it's going to be an interesting NATO meeting. This was a long way of saying I don't think that this attack today was done as a signal to anybody. This was a pre-planned attack that happened because the stars aligned, but it's going to happen again. The Russians are constantly monitoring Ukraine right now with total overwatch. And as the intelligence gathers the information, as the targets are assessed, as the weapon systems are assembled, as the air defense are broken down, the Russians will come in and hit another target and another target and another and they will never end. The Ukrainians, the best they can do is slip 2 or 3 drones through and blow up an oil tank. Looks good on, but what was more impressive, that lid flipping in the air or Kiev on fire last night? And I think the Russians made the point, we can do this all day, every day. And they will do it all day, every day.
One of the things that you were talking about is important. And that's why I feel like the trips that when you were, I was fortunate enough to accompany you to Russia, how I learned things that I couldn't learn any other way. There's no other way to learn it. You have to experience the culture. And one of the things I remember talking to one of our friends who was in Dubai, and he was just laughing about it. He was saying, yeah, you got to understand the Russians. He said, we're in Dubai when the war started. He says, and we're in this really nice hotel. And the drones and missiles started flying, and they came up there and they said, all right, everybody, we're going to go down and everybody's going to sleep in the basement. And he said, and like the Russians that were staying in the hotel were like, nah, we're just going back to the rooms and sleep. And then people were running around, oh my God, and the Russians the next day are like, yeah, any restaurants open, we're going to go get something to eat. And when you go to Russia and you talk to the people, you realize, people don't understand something about fights, and you understand this. Anybody who's trained in martial arts or defense understand this. It ain't always the guy that can throw the punches that wins. It's the person that can take the punches. And when you talk to the Russian people, this crap about, if we throw some drones at the Russians, they'll fall apart. They'll run around like mice in fear. They'll turn on it. And you look and you're like, you don't understand the Russians. You talk about a people that can take a punch. In fact, I'll go further. You just make them mad when you punch them. You just make them angry and more resolute. They have this reference point, which is World War II, the Great Patriotic War. And you can't walk 5 feet in Russia without seeing some kind of tribute to what they put up. And it's almost like there is an anger and a horror. Oh man, this is what we had to do. But there's also a pride in it that says, look what we took. We took this. We took the maximum punch, everything together. They threw everything at us. We took the punches. Well, did it hurt? Sure. But in the end, we won. And it seems to instill something into their culture that you can't get around. And that is, I don't care when you punch them, it only makes them angry. It only makes them more resolute. They're unshakable. And this business about we're going to throw some drones and upset the Russian people, and then they'll be frightened and afraid and blah, blah, blah. They don't understand the Russian culture, and that because of their reference point, because of their pride in the Great Patriotic War, attacking the Russians and attacking the civilians only does the opposite and makes them angry and more resolute and more proud.
Yeah. No, I mean, you hit it on the head. Look, Russia is Russia, and it's unique and in a wonderful way. But the Russians, they're just like we are in many ways too. In Russia, there is the blogosphere. There's a lot of, Z bloggers, they call them. There's, they have their version of the talk shows. There's some very popular talk shows, very popular hosts. Vladimir Solovyov is extraordinarily popular, and he possesses deep insights. He's not somebody, whether you agree with his politics or not is irrelevant. He's somebody who possesses insights and, more importantly, as an audience, millions. That Ksenia Sobchak is another person opposite end of the spectrum. She has an audience of millions. She has a different perspective. The Z bloggers are there. The thing about Z bloggers, and people need to understand that, go on Telegram and you can subscribe to their channels, but they give themselves away. Every once in a while they go and hit the like button, subscribe. I mean, just what we do, hit the like button, subscribe. Why? Well, because you can't survive without viewers. You can't survive without viewers. You've got to have viewers, and you got to deliver a product that is attractive, which means you're always looking for an angle. Your angle is the truth. Their angle may not be the truth, because the truth, when you're dealing with Russia, with a Russian president, with just a few months ago had a popularity rating of 84%. If you just sit there and cheerlead, you disappear into the chatter, and you're not separated. There's no reason for people to subscribe to your channel and support you. So you need to separate yourself. And so there's a lot of people right now who in Russia are exploiting the Ukrainian Western intelligence information operation for their own personal benefit. They're over there, repeating the Ukrainian propaganda and then asking the question, why isn't Putin doing more? You have sincere people too. Look, it's possible to be extra. I think Sergei Karaganov is an extraordinary, sincere person of the highest intellect, but he has taken the position that what Russia's doing right now is weak, and that Vladimir Putin needs to attack Europe. And that's he's allowed to have that point. I sympathize with a lot of it. But again, I also recognize that Vladimir Putin is the president of Russia with the weight of a nation on his back, and he has to make different decisions. And that the decisions he makes has to be, assessed on a broader range of topics than simply how are we responding to Europe. But my point is, you can go to Russia and you can find voices that question the war. You can find voices of opposition. And sometimes these voices are concentrated in the social media realm or on TV. Again, because TV, a lot of these people who are on TV have their own Telegram channels. And so they go on these shows, The Great Game and 60 Minutes and all this, and they say their things. And again, if you go on there and you just, Scott, what do you think? I think Vladimir Putin's doing a really good job. Well, now I just made the program boring. Well, Scott, what do you think Putin should do differently? Nothing. I think Putin's doing a really good job. Audiences, you're losing the audience. Go to the next guy. What do you think? Well, I think Vladimir Putin is, getting a little older now. And, he may have been strong in the past, but now he's slipping at the wheel and the dogs are nipping at him. And, he's got to do this, that. And people are going, oh, wait, this is interesting now. We're watching this show. And then I have a Telegram channel and subscribe to my Telegram channel. Oh, and then up. And so, Russia plays this game as well. It's a dangerous game. This is why I really like our good friend, Andrei Elnitsky, because Andrei Elnitsky recognizes this, and it's called mental war. And you have to be really careful because you get sucked into this thing and you don't realize that you're being weaponized to destroy a society from within. And a lot of the Z bloggers are doing that. And I believe in free speech, and I think everybody has a right to speak out, but people should understand what's going on, especially Western observers observing the Russian dynamic need to understand that it's a little bit more complicated. This is why Gilbert Doctorow needs to be treated with a huge grain of salt. I mean, a man who watches Russian TV and makes his analysis based solely upon that is missing the point that what he's getting on Russian TV is not a reflection of reality. It's a highly doctored script designed to, tweak emotions so that people subscribe, so that people watch. It's not real, Gilbert. It's not real. And handpicking your damn taxi drivers and listening to them. Hell, I love Russian taxi drivers. Every time I get in one, we talk to them, and sometimes we get great insights. We had one say that you're that guy. Really? I'm that guy? Yeah. You're the best damn military analyst in the world. Really? Thanks. Your name? Scott Ritter? No. No. You're that really good military analyst, Tucker Carlson. Now, I mean, right off the bat, we got an issue here. I mean, I'd love to be Tucker with his viewership and all that, but the point is taxi drivers don't always know what they're talking about. So you have to be careful. But this is Gilbert Doctorow's word, or he goes to dinner with people who think just like him, and he creates an echo chamber. People need to be really careful. The best way to deal with Russia is go there yourself. Colin, that's what I told you. That's why, we went there twice, and hopefully we can go again. You got to go to Russia. You got to see it firsthand. You got to see this for yourself. You got to meet with people, talk to people, listen to people. That's one of the most important things. But we need to be careful right now because in Russia, there is this echo chamber that's being weaponized by the West, and it's being used to try and tear down Russian society. And it's having an impact. I mean, God, this is really bad stuff. I hate to report this, but Vladimir Putin's popularity rating went from 84 to 79.
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
the man's on the verge of collapsing right now. I mean, no Russian supports him at all. An American politician would kill for a 79% approval rating, wouldn't they? I mean, could you imagine that?
Right.
We got presidents going, I got 36% support. I'm doing pretty good. Well, Vladimir Putin's got 79%. He's been in war for over 4 years. All right. And, he's going up against, and this is the other thing people don't understand. The Russians are going up against one of the most sophisticated hybrid war, proxy war, information war systems there. The British running this, the CIA running this, even some European Union intelligence services. These are good intelligence, and I don't mean good like nice guys. I mean, they know what they're doing. They're very, very knowledgeable. And they remember their job isn't so much to change Russian society because they're failing. Their job is to change perceptions in the West, and they're having a good success rate. There's so many people just believe the crap they see on social media. I mean, it's amazing how you could put out a post. They go, oh. I mean, I got people that call me up. Well, Scott, last night on Twitter, I read that this, that, and the other thing was happening. I said, no, don't do that. Don't read Twitter or don't read X. But there's a huge information warfare campaign being waged right now. This is why shows like yours are so important. That's why I go on them, because you have an audience that asks questions, that has a discerning mind. And we've talked about this in the past. When you take your audience, Danny Haifong's audience, Judge Napolitano's audience, Nima Rostami's audience, there's some overlap, but they're different audiences altogether. When you add them up, people are like, Scott, why are you going on the internet all the time? Do I really want to spend my day doing this? No, I'd rather play golf. I'd rather be with Maverick. But it's important to do this. This is the absolutely most important time. And by going on all these shows, 5 to 7 million people are going to be impacted by what I say. And that swamps anything the mainstream media does. See, we have a platform and we have the ability to strike back, and we are striking back. And we need to, not that we need to do better, but, we need to grow our platforms more so that we can offset, but we're being crushed on X. I've got over, almost 600,000 followers. Now, I know many of them are bots. And many of them just come in because they hate me. But a lot of them come in to watch. But what happens is that the X people, they throttle it down with algorithms. You see this with YouTube too. We just had a wonderful lady, Susie from Cyprus. We interviewed her, and she's seen herself being throttled down by YouTube. And so this program, you never know what's going to happen when the algorithm, when you try to put this on YouTube, is the algorithm going to let you succeed or let you fail? We don't know. So we're fighting an uphill battle, but it's a battle that must be fought. And I'm here to tell you right now that if I didn't do this trip and come back with this information, the propagandists that are out there selling the, Ukraine is winning would be in a better position, because, the thing that allows me to counter them so strongly is I can say, I was there. I was there, right there, talking to the people that matter. And this is why we have to keep doing what we're doing. We have to keep going back. We have to keep being empowered. I last was in the SMO 2 years ago, over 2 years ago. And it was a good trip, and I learned a lot. But the war has changed, Russia has changed, everything has changed. And for me to continue to talk in a allegedly informed fashion about the SMO based upon 2-year-old information is just, it's not professional. So this trip had to be done. I'm very glad that I did it. I wish we could have completed it. I couldn't go to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant because it's too dangerous. They were just literally, Scott, you're going to die. And me, I don't care. I'm going to do it. And they're like, well, no. Because, after a while, it's like, Scott, you understand that it just won't be you dying. We understand. Right. But we're going to die too. And we don't want to die. So no. And then you're going to go on I was supposed to go on the Crimea, do the whole loop, top to bottom loop. But we got to Melitopol, and the highway of death is called the highway of death for a reason. And trying to make it to Kherson at that point in time, it was literally like playing Russian roulette with 5 out of the 6 chambers loaded with live ammunition. I mean, click, miss, good, yay, click, oh, wow, we're doing really good, boom, you're going to get it. And because they blew up the Chongar Bridge connecting to Crimea, we couldn't sprint in and then sprint into Crimea. We would have to turn around, which means that if we survive the first round of Russian roulette, we got to play the second round of Russian roulette going back. And the odds were, the Hunger Games, may the odds be in your favor. Well, the odds were not in our favor. So it was a little frustrating because I didn't get to do everything I wanted to do. But I tell you what, I got to sit down with the drone operators. I got to watch them work. I got to go to the Drone Research Center and watch them explain the technology to me. I interviewed Dmitry Rogozhin, former head of Roscosmos, who today runs a drone unit / center called Bar Sarmat, and had a very fascinating conversation with him. Got to interview very experienced drone operators, guys who were there at from the very beginning, the guys who invented drone warfare when it first started. They're the ones who got the commercial drones and were flying them. And now today they're the ones who are, doing the visionary reassessment of drone warfare and tactics and the technology. And I got to do all that, and we'll be producing a documentary film based on this, and I'll be writing articles about this. But again, none of that could happen long distance. I couldn't sit here in Albany and keep doing that. You have to go and you have to do it. So I would just continue to tell people, if you can't do it yourself, then support the people that do it. Support Garland. You got that fund going, don't you?
Yes,
I do. Return Garland to Russia fund.
Yeah.
Okay.
The last thing I wanted to ask you is, or get you to comment on, and that is, I'm reading these articles in the West, and you see the bots on X. Yes, the Russian people have had enough they're ready to end the war, and they, the implication being this, where they're getting hit with drones, their lives are a living hell, and they're all looking at Putin saying, we've had enough, uncle, just call and take whatever deal you can get and walk away. When in fact, my experience in Russia was the opposite. It was, they were angry saying, you ain't hitting them hard enough. You know what I mean? The only anger at Putin, or the only frustration, was never just take a deal and walk away. That's not even in the conversation. It is just hit them harder, hit them faster, smash them all, crush, kill, destroy, as the robot used to say in Lost in Space. I'm giving my old Danger Will Robinson, crush, kill, destroy, right? But that's what the people are saying. It's actually the opposite. Any frustration with Vladimir Putin and his administration is that you are not being aggressive enough. And it's interesting to watch them show the bots on Twitter and the BBC all say the opposite.
Well, there are some people in Russia who, again, I did a 3-hour interview with Ksenia Sobchak, who's a very big name. Now, she hasn't published the interview yet. Come on, Ksenia. 3 hours, some good stuff. Call me if you got a problem. But, she is against the war, very much against the war. And she articulates, and there's a certain, I guess, spectrum of Russian society that's against the war as well, because they continue to be pro-Western. And there's Russians, and there's people in Russia who love Apple technology. It's good technology, but does that mean that you're anti-Russian? No, it just means you like it. But there are people who say, "Oh no, I love Western technology, Western culture, Western this, Western that." And they don't appreciate being Russian. And there are people out there that still are that. Most of them left. They fled, when the war started. And the other ones who remained have converted. As you said, it's hard to be anti-Russian living in Russia, because you're surrounded by the evidence of the sacrifice of your forefathers. And to be anti-Russian means that you're betraying everything that Russia stands for. And there's 27 million pairs of eyes staring down at you from the heavens every day, reminding you of the sacrifices that were made. But there are people there who question the war. There's no doubt about that. And they have a voice, etc. The mistake that's made is giving them too much attention, paying too much attention to them. Because Garland, you and I did it. We went to the patriotic front, or whatever,
yeah,
where the old retired ladies are weaving the things and working overtime to put together support packages for the troops. And in every city, there are multiple groups like this. You know, it's just, people volunteer to drive this stuff to the front. Alexandra, you met Alexandra, her mother drives to the front multiple times delivering goods. This is Russia. These are Russian people. They're all heroes, every single one of them. And we can't, I think what happens is that in America, we don't know enough about Russia. We also are, exposed continuously to Russophobia. So we sort of might even have a natural inclination to be sort of negatively inclined towards Russia. So you gravitate to the information that best fits your opinion of what the world is. Very few people start off by saying, I got a clean slate, I need to know. And I only insist on fact-based knowledge. Most people come in with an opinion formed by their past experiences, et cetera. Then you gravitate to the source of data that best reflects your opinion. So now you're reinforcing your opinion. And if your opinion is wrong, you're reinforcing failure. And so you can go out there and find sources in Russia that will support any position you have, whether Putin's the best president or Putin's the worst president. But the reality is you got to go through the bias filter and filter out those sources of information that have heavy bias and just get down to the basic Russian. There's a reason why Putin has 79% support, because the vast majority of the basic Russians support him. They support Russia. They support what's going on, even if they don't think that Putin's exercising or executing the plan perfectly. They support him because he's a Russian leader. And look what he's done for Russia. That's the other thing that people don't understand. For 26 years now, this man has taken a nation that was literally in the cesspool, and he's built it to this amazing country. Is it perfect? No. I mean, I always love when people pull up a photograph. Look at the dirt roads. Dude, I can go right down here 5 miles away from where I live and find you a dirt road in America. Look at the the buildings that, like that. Some kid posted something on Moscow, that Moscow Center. Remember that really fancy place with all the New York City style side? It would be even better. And they did, oh, this is Moscow. Then they flipped over here and you got old Khrushchev type buildings, that are a little run down. Oh, this is Moscow. Have you guys driven from JFK Airport into Manhattan? Gone through some of those neighborhoods and taken a look at that? I mean, there's not a place in the world that you can go where you're not going to find that kind of contrast. What I can say, though, is I'll take you to New York City subway, and then we'll compare that with the Moscow subway or the St. Petersburg subway or any subway. The Russians do it right. And it's not just Moscow and St. Petersburg. Go to Grozny. You've been to Grozny. Filthy city, wasn't it? Filthy city. I mean, no modern construction at all. Those Chechens live in the Stone Age. And you could go to Volgograd and find a city. You go to Ekaterinburg, go to Novosibirsk, go to any Russian city, and you're looking at a modern city, modern society. I went to Irkutsk, and that's where I first got exposed to the concept of Yandex cars. Because they got these cars just parked on the road. I'm like, why are they here? Want to go for a ride? What do you mean? Pull out their cell phone. Ding, 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 ding. We're in the car and we're driving. We just rented a car instantly. And now it's time to park it. Where's the nearest parking spot? You park into approved Yandex parking spot and you're out. They come around and they maintain the cars. They refuel the cars. You don't have to do anything. You rented the car. And they've got scooters that do this. They got this. As you're walking the streets anywhere in Russia, you'll run into these little R2D2 things, these little robot things with the flag on it. Beep, beep, beep. That's fast food delivery. You call up, say, I want a pizza. They put it in the little thing, beep, 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 in there. It delivers it. And the Russians are amazing. They make way for it. They respect it. Every once in a while, they find one that hits something and can't get over it. They help it up and move it. Russia is a very modern society, a very advanced society. And it's populated by really, really good people with great hearts.